We good to go?
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Dr. Paul.
What up, interweb? I'm Dr. Paul.
No problem, Brian. No problem at all. Hey, what do you say you and I do a little fishing?
And we welcome to Rotten Potatoes.
Oh, behave, baby.
Boomer, millennial, father, son. Speaking of which, I've been a bad dad.
I concur.
I'm not. But you know what? It's okay. Because it's possible to be so bad that you're actually good.
Oh, you're going the right way for a smack bottom, and I don't care who knows it.
Yeah. So neglect has somehow forced me to become an adult earlier in life, and thereby has made you a good father in the long run.
So actually, I'm a great father. We are so happy that you are here with us today. Of course, this is in the 31 days of Halloween. Is just
This will probably be the last one.
this will be the last.
Well, no, it'll be
No.
the second to last one.
Yeah. So every day, a new film that you should watch that day. We put out there, and each week, every Thursday, we put out a special episode. In October, it's all about horror movies.
They liked the one from yesterday, whatever that one was.
I love this month, and I think our viewers do. We're going to talk today about horror movies that are so bad they're good.
Mm-hmm. Which is a necessary
Do you
topic.
think in the entire universe of horror films, there are more bad ones than good ones?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I agree. Why is that?
Well, because I think that these are low budget. They're easy to make. They're easy to pretty much turn out. They don't require a whole lot of digital effects. You can do practical effects. So I think that studios take chances on them. I think people are more likely to make an independent film is going to be a horror film. So you get together with your friends, you're going to make a horror film, that type of deal. So I think maybe that's it. And also people, they tend to have genres or themes that are a little bit more out there too.
I think there's another thing to it, is because the generation that grew up, we have the democratization of film. Anybody can make a movie now because of a camera.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we have with Clerks with started with our good buddy Kevin Smith. I think horror movies were so sort of instrumental in childhood that when people think about making a movie, horror is the first thing that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
But just because like when I was running for mayor, I said, just because you know how to drive doesn't mean you know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the case. People want to make a good horror movie, but in the end, they're just not very good. But some of them, you know, in my list, I don't know what he's going to say. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. We come up with our top 7. Do you think there's going to be much overlap?
I think that there's a couple movies out there potentially.
Yep.
But they're not on my list.
Got him! Got him!
Yeah. Do you think that the movies that are on our list, that they set out, their intent really was to make a good movie or to make a quick movie and it just try to cash in on the moment? Or why is it somebody would spend the time and energy that it was something that was so
I don't know.
misgotten?
I don't know.
Well, we're supposed to know because
I think
Desert
I
Island.
think that horror is sort of, it's very meta and it's created a genre within itself where it's like you try to be bad, like schlocky horror, where it's attempting to be as bad as it can be in an effort to be good. So it's hard to say.
Yeah. Well,
it's like tanking in the draft because you're trying to get the first pick, but the first pick is your movie ends up being good.
You sort of mash together like genres, sports and film.
For those of you at home that want to know what sports are or goes out outside the house.
Well, kick us off, little man, and tell me, what is your number 7 horror movie that's so bad it's good?
Well, this I consider to be the godfather of bad horror films. Coming in at a stellar 5% on Rotten Tomatoes is Troll 2. Now, I start my list, and that progressively the films get better.
Yes, me too.
So, Troll 2. Have you ever seen that one?
I don't think so.
You may have seen some of the footage where the trolls in this are basically wearing brown sweatpants and sweatshirts with Walmart troll masks, and they play a large feature in this. I've
Low
never-
budget?
Oh, very low budget. I've never heard of it. Claudio Fragasso. I don't know. A vacationing family discovers that an entire town they're visiting is inhabited by goblins disguised as humans who plan to eat them. It's nonsense, but it's so bad that it works together. It's like The Room for horror films.
Yeah.
And it's the most unwatchable film on my list by far and away. But it's so bad and so dated and so 80s that it becomes an experience. And it's actually then, as a whole, kind of entertaining.
Did they make a Troll 3?
No. Troll was an attempt to make a decent horror film. Still pretty bad. This, I guess they got the rights to it, or they got the rights to the name and used it to try to like sell this to get people to buy this, even though the last one wasn't any good. So I think it's kind of they have nothing to do with one another.
Yeah. No, I've seen it before, but I've never been. I can't remember if I even saw Troll 1.
I don't know that I've seen all the way through Troll 1.
Yeah. So good choice. My number 7, I seriously wonder whether most of the people out there have even heard of this. And I doubt that you have heard of it. The Long Hair of Death.
No.
36% on Rotten Tomatoes. What's amazing to me, this is one of those things, how did I miss this? It's 1964. It's an Italian film dubbed in English. Actually, a pretty good dub as far as dubs go. It's black and white, directed by Antonia Marghetti, and it stars what is really probably the first, and some would argue the greatest scream queen, and that is Barbara Steele, who's still alive, like 86, 90 years old. It's a very intriguing sort of story. There's a woman, and she has her 2 daughters. The woman is accused of being a witch. They burn her at the stake, right?
Okay.
Her oldest daughter tries to save her. She gets murdered in the process. The younger daughter watches all of this. Well, one day, the older daughter, somebody looks like her, Barbara Steele, comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about revenge. It's really vile how they treat women in this thing. This is one, you know how sometimes in bad movies, you have to, or good movies, you have to force yourself to watch. There are people like Citizen Kane, like, okay, yeah, it's supposed to be great. I need to force myself to do this because it's considered great.
Yeah.
It's kind of like eating your vegetables.
Yeah.
You know, you have to, they're good for you, but you're just going to do it. I watched this movie in preparation for this, looking for films that are considered to be bad but are good, and I couldn't turn it off. It's really that good. It's the set design, the music, the lighting on this. It's really genuinely creepy, kind of thing. And I thought, oh my goodness! But I don't know why it would wind up with 36% on Rotten Tomatoes, other than the fact that it's foreign film with dubbing.
I mean, yeah.
And it's and it's black and white. But I would own this kind of deal.
The name doesn't do any. The title of the film doesn't do anything.
Well, the poster for it has, obviously, if you get burned at the stake, you're going to have a messed up sort of face, and then the hair was all down. It's supposed to be a witch kind of stuff. So that's kind of how they sort. But you're right, and it might have been one of those things. That's the English translation from the Italian, the long hair of death kind of thing. And you wonder back in the '60s. That long hairs was a pejorative term. It's like, oh, you hippies. I don't know.
Dirty hippie trash.
I would encourage folks out there to seek this one out. And it really could be much, much higher, because I agree with you as it gets, but it's the first one I started with. And I figured just the title alone, those of you, if you have a pen, paper and pencil, you're writing down these things. And that's part of our job here, is to turn you on to something. It's like, hey, I've never heard of that. Trust me, you'll thank me for this one.
It sounds. The name. I can't picture that name. I expect something different than that. But anyway, it does sound like a good movie, though. Sounds like it could be like a Argento film or something like that.
Yep. Oh yes, they've kind of compared Bava and Argento to that time period. Yep.
Yeah. All right, number 6. If Sling Blade was a horror movie, it would be called 1995's The Ice Cream Man.
Ron Howard's
Clint
brother.
Howard's Clint Howard is Gregory. He was I guess a simple lad, and ends up in this, what's it called, the Wishing Well Sanitarium, and he just wants to make children happy, so he opens up an old ice cream factory. Only the brats are unappreciative, so he reprocesses them into the flavor of the day. It's as schlocky gets, but it's got this very, again, 1990s quality. So it's very like after school special action figure commercial. It's super silly, but Ron Howard's brother, Clint Howard, really acts in it. He gives it the old Billy Bob Thornton treatment and really goes hard on it. And it ends up kind of working in the end. And I don't know why.
I think Clint Howard gets on his knees every night and thanks God that his brother's famous, because otherwise he'd be working at Home Depot.
Oh, yeah. He'd be handing out stickers at Walmart, greeting people at the door.
I remember seeing the film, and I think that was the first film that I ever saw that Clint Howard was the lead. He was the star treatment. And I thought he did really, really well. I mean, he was believable in the
He was
whole
very
thing.
believable.
It's like, and then he sort of devolved to, doesn't he do like in
Austin Powers.
Doesn't he do like
he's got a scene in Austin Powers. Yeah.
Like, look, it's the flaming balls of death. Or something.
The boob shaped satellites or whatever. Yeah.
So
he's also in Apollo 13. He plays a serious, like one of the operators in that. I mean, he's been in a bunch of stuff.
He's a lot like Sam Raimi's brother, who's
very much just Sam Raimi never got a lead role in anything. He got a side piece role in like Hercules or Xena Warrior Princess or something.
Yeah. No, that's again, and I agree. It's so bad that it is good.
Yeah, I just remember him pulling like the Rocky Road ice cream had eyeballs in it. It was silly though. It was good stuff.
Good. My number 6 is Happy Birthday to Me, 29% in Rotten Tomatoes.
Never heard of it.
1981, I think it was. This is when I asked the question, like, did they set out to make a bad movie? It can't be. J. Lee Thompson was the director, and this guy's got like major mojo. He directed Guns of Navarone. He did Cape Fear. He did Conquest of the Planet of the Apes as a genre film. It's got Melissa Sue Anderson from Little House on the Prairie and Glenn Ford, which is like major star power. It capitalizes on that time period where we had movies that were based on holidays, or events, prom night or Groundhog Day, Valentine's Day, that kind of stuff. So any holiday, they needed to come up with a horror film. This is kind of it's very Final Destination like, in that it's coming up with a creative way to make kills. There is essentially, the story is there is a group called the Top 10, and it's kind of a cliquish thing, and they get together every night at the Silent Woman Tavern and sit around and just have a good time.
The Silent Woman Tavern.
Yes, that's got to say
go
something in terms of there's got to be great sociological, for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Melissa Sue Anderson, she gets in a car accident. It's this little stunt thing, and she has some brain damage and memory loss, and then she goes through this treatment for it. And about that time, one by one, members of the Top 10 start dying off. And it really is about watching these little set pieces for the death. It feels like it's a precursor to Scream. It certainly pays homage, or I think it was to Final Destination. And surprisingly,
you said what year?
Good. I think it was 1981.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, and generally, even though it's 29% on Rotten Tomato, it is much loved within the genre.
Yeah, when you get to movies that are that old, you can never really take that score, because it may not have enough people to have rated it. The Ice Cream Man doesn't have a critics rating; it has an audience rating. So
Yep.
yeah, makes sense. But yeah, it's another one I've not heard of. So interesting. I'm surprised I've not at least heard of them before. So that was number 6. My number 5. 2006 Poultrygeist. Obviously, it's a spoof of Poltergeist. It's a Traumaville release. 64% Rotten Tomatoes, 6 out of 10 on IMDb. Lloyd Kaufman directed. Jason Yakinin, who was also in the first VHS movie, but it's about a chicken restaurant on a burial ground, and it is exactly what you think it is. They turn into like chicken zombies. It's super duper low budget, but it's made with love and care, and it does all the things that Traumaville movies do. And it was made in 2006, so it's a little bit newer.
I have a numbered copy, a limited edition.
I know, that's the first time I saw it. I wasn't expecting it to have been released in 2006 when I looked up the date. I thought it was a 90s movie. I thought I saw it on like VHS even, but
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Do you think that Lloyd Kaufman and all the Traumaville films, that they deliberately try to make bad movies?
I think they know exactly what they're doing. There's like a specific niche that they work in well. It's very like silly, gory, but it works. It worked especially well in the 80s. Maybe not so much now and today, but it
Toxic Avenger?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I would agree that it's bad. I don't know that it's so bad that it's good. And here's your best. How many times do you think I've watched the limited edition?
A half a time.
Yeah, one time.
Probably barely.
With one eye open.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't. It's obviously it's a great setup because it's Poltergeist. It's like an Indian burial ground kind of thing, but it's a fast food restaurant, kind of very silly. It's probably better watched it might be good in a horror marathon with a bunch of people that by that time, you're just, cracking jokes, cracking wise.
Yeah, it's perfect for that. And maybe because I used to run a chicken restaurant, I have nightmares about it.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. My number 5.
Snakes on a Train.
No, that's the name of the movie. And I never went to the movie theater to see
How
this.
many S's is that?
Well, that's an interesting thing because depending on like Rotten Tomatoes, I think it has like 5 S's, and I think on IMDb it's 4. I can't imagine going to the movie theater and they say, you're there and it's a multiplex and you say,
No, I'm sure a bunch of guys that were there were like, I want to go to that movie.
Yeah, 1973. It's 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. Bernard L. Kowalski does the directing. He did much of TV up at that point, Rawhide, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, never heard of it.
It's essentially the story of this college student that works in a lab, and a scientist is trying to create this venom which will turn humans into snakes.
I'm a snake. I'm a slithery little sneaky snake.
And here, I'll tell you, here's the thing that like this was on Svengoolie. It's been I read once that, do you remember Mystery Science Theater 3000?
Yeah.
That they're all about watching bad movies, but sometimes the movies that they watch are too good for Mystery Science Theater because you don't want them to be. You don't want people talking over it. You really get into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened with. When I watched it on Svengoolie, it's like, this is really one of the better movies Svengoolie has ever done. It's surprisingly good. Dirk Benedict, Strother Martin, for the time period, really pretty good special effects when you start seeing the humans turning into snakes.
I'd be interesting to see what it looks like.
What?
To see what it looks like. I'll be interested to see what that looks like.
What the face looks like?
What the change looks like.
Oh, yeah, it's yeah. I don't know that it was a thing where it was change, not like the old 40s with the Wolfman where they would do a picture and then they would change into a picture. It's more like makeup effect. Okay, and here this person is, they now have become a snake. I don't remember in the film them actually changing.
I'm just saying a little bit like whatever they look like.
Yeah, it's very good. You could look it up, but delightful. And it was on. Those of you seen Svengoolie, you've seen this before. I keep waiting. Svengoolie recycles stuff all the time. I keep waiting for him to show it again. Good movie, really
Nobody's
good.
seen it.
Typical 70s. What?
Nobody's watched it. What's Svengoolie?
Oh, come on.
I'm just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And what's it called again? From what year?
73.
1973.
Yeah, my junior year in high school.
Super.
West Side Cowboys represent, yo.
All right. Number 4. This one was just up the other day on 31 Days of Halloween. That's Basket Case from 1982.
Oh, yeah.
From Frank Henenlotter. I know how to say it now after watching that video a bunch. And Van Hettenrich. I think it's a perfect encapsulation of what this list is all about. It was, I think, sort of done to try. They were attempting to make a good movie, and they just had to make it as cheaply as they possibly could. And it still ends up working. I watched it the other day, and it was good. It's actually pretty gory, and it's particular. Like it's actually got some decent tension and some decent scares in it, and it amounts to what's a pretty good horror movie when it's all said and done.
It is. And I think it's just a delightful sort of setup. And
Short, sweet, and to the point.
yeah, it is. The basket kind of deal. It's just kind of this is just, it was delightful. I think I see it as a comedy more than a horror film.
It does hit as a comedic notes quite a bit, but it's got some good scares and stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot of people out there that never heard of it, never
Mhm.
seen it, and I know the way that they advertised it was just fascinating back in that time period. It was in some ways kind
With
of
the hot
heyday.
dogs in the basket.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. Yeah, all right. My number 4, Exorcist 3, 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is loved or hated. I think it is. I think it's. I certainly number 2 was horrible and not good and not and number 1 is a classic. Number 3 was written and directed by William Peter Blatty,
Mhm.
who is the author of The Exorcist. And so I think he directed maybe 3 movies, and this is obviously the one that he did. It's got they paid some money because they had George C. Scott in this, Brad Dourif, Ed Flanders, and Jason Miller. Jason Miller played Father Karras in the first film.
Mhm.
Little fascinating side story here. This is extra credit for you, but Jason Miller won the Pulitzer Prize for drama by writing what I consider to be the best basketball film ever made, that championship season. And he won the
guy that plays the young father.
Yeah, Father Karras. Yeah.
Yeah. They had a movie about his life came out earlier this year.
Really?
Yeah, with Russell Crowe called The Exorcism. I think Exorcism or Exorcist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well.
it didn't get good reviews.
Well, he again, Pulitzer Prize. I mean, just amazing kind of just to write that and then to, obviously, as an actor. I believe it has the best scare in any of the thing. It's totally unexpected.
Used it in the last episode.
What's that?
I used it in the last episode.
I know, I saw it. Yeah, it's basically, for those of you who haven't seen, 17 years after The Exorcist occur, there's this mass murder going on. And so it kind of is a mashup between a detective film and a horror film. And just in the process of taking notes and sort of it made me thought, I have got to watch this right now. Of all the movies on my list, it's the one that I want to watch. And I would watch it over and over again. It's just
on,
kind of a...
Amazon now. I was thinking about clicking it on the other night.
Is it? Well, give it a try. It really is. Again, even though I think some people look at Rotten Tomatoes or whatever and say, "Oh, I'm not going to touch that." Some people think, "Oh, whatever." If Rotten Tomatoes says it's good, I'm going to hate it. If they love it, I'm going to. But
True.
good. I think it's really good.
True. Yeah, I agree with your opinion on Rotten Tomatoes too. I wouldn't consider that movie a bad movie at all. I just consider that a good movie.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess there's a lot of people that don't like it. So
Mhm.
it makes sense. All right. Number 3. Now, there's some people who may put this at number 1 on the list, but I don't like it as much as they do, but I do appreciate it quite a bit. And that is 1985's Reanimator, which has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, apparently. But it's, Jeffrey Combs. He thinks there's just something about him that's creepy, and it works so well in Frighteners. It works so well in this. It's a good movie. It's gory. It's weird. It's creepy. It's kind of got like a Return of the Living Dead vibe to it.
Yeah,
but I'm
exactly.
a big fan of it.
Yep, same kind of tone of that, and kind of almost like an Army of Darkness thing. There's
Yep.
a really
Yep.
with that whole
Army of Darkness 2. Or not Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, it's got Bride of Reanimator. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
I have, but
yeah,
I can't remember anything about it.
Good choice.
Got it on VHS.
Yeah, he does. He's very unique as an actor in the roles that he plays. Creepy, do you say, is he overacting or what? I don't know. He's just, you can't take your eyes off him when he's, on the screen.
No, he's strange and weird, and you believe that he could do what he's doing.
Yeah. And I would say the same thing that you said about Exorcist 3. I wouldn't call that a bad movie. I just think call it a horror movie, but I guess there are people that do.
I was surprised when I saw the scores on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, but I still felt it fit here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it would have been number one, but I just think the other two movies are better films.
Okay. My number 3 is The Manitou, which you probably never have heard. 45% on Rotten Tomatoes. I actually read the novel back when I was back in high school. It is it's directed by William Girdler, who his only real other big film was Abby, which was a black exorcist kind of stuff, and has its own sort of delightful kind of thing. That's another day to talk about that one. It's a story of Tony Curtis, who is Hollywood gold, is a psychic, and he goes to a witch doctor to help him treat his girlfriend, who has this little thing growing on her neck,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they think it's a tumor. And it turns out that it is the body of a 400-year-old medicine man. Yep. So you think about how big that had to get, and the scene where it actually sort of comes out, and it's really, it's definitely it's a better book than it was a horror film, but it's definitely so unusual that you've never seen before. It's horrifying. It's scary as a book, but the movie, it's like, okay,
It's a ridiculous premise.
it is, but it works. So.
And it's called Manitou?
Manitou. And Manitou is a sort of I guess it's an Indian, a native word.
From Medicine Man in My Neck.
Medicine Man. Yeah, the Manitou. Great spirit kind of deal.
And wait, when did you say that came out?
I didn't write that down. I'm sorry. I'm ill prepared.
All right. My number 2. My number 2. 2007's Hatchet. This is sort of like the rebirth of 70s slasher films, Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's got Kane Hodder in it. The second one even has like Tony Todd and Robert Englund and maybe one other one in there too. But it's about a kid who's deformed, who somehow gets a hatchet in the face by his dad and becomes this evil spirit that lurks the woods. Anyway, they have this tour on this swamp in New Orleans, and he ends up haunting and killing a bunch of people there. It's all about the set pieces, and I know the guy that did the SFX in it said that they wanted to have all these like gadgets or like a belt sander that he could like kill people with, but he's like, you can't plug a belt sander in, so if it's not a real tool that's gas powered or doesn't work, then we're not going to have it. So they came up with all these gas powered killing machines. So he's out there killing people with belt sanders and like nail guns and pitchforks. It's completely over the top. And as you get in the series 2, 3, and maybe 4, they basically double the kills every time, and it just gets over the top. And it's a good series too. It's a solid horror film.
I swear, I think I have that.
Yeah, that's where I saw it.
But I'm not sure that I remember it the way
I think you let me borrow it, and I really liked it, and you were like, eh.
Huh. Well, how about that?
How about that?
Yeah,
Story
I
of my
didn't.
life.
As you describe it, it doesn't. If you'd asked me about the film Hatchet, I would say, "Oh yeah, that's a good horror film." But so I must be misremembering.
Yeah, it's a strange
And that is your what?
number 2.
So that's really, you like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm a big fan of that series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of my number 2. I've talked about it before. Frankenstein Conquers the World. Yep. 53% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's also known as Frankenstein versus Baragon. So it's clearly in the Godzilla sort of pantheon. It's got a great setup. The Nazis find Frankenstein's heart, and they give it to the Japanese
Who weaponize it?
Navy. And, years later, there's this little feral kid running around, and they get him. He's eating live animals, eating, animal kind of stuff. But then he starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger and turns into this sort of Godzilla-sized Frankenstein, and ends up fighting this Baragon.
Why does he start getting big?
Well, I think the implication is somehow he ate and was exposed in some way to the heart of Frankenstein.
He eats Frankenstein.
Yes.
Just how you get from A to B to C. Well, how do we get this kid big? We can't just have him eat some sort of radioactive thing. We need him to eat Frankenstein's heart.
Well, I think it was because Frankenstein's heart was also, you had in between this, you had the atomic bomb that went off, in the same way that Godzilla was large because of this whole metaphor of atomic power. They're saying the same thing. And now Frankenstein has become big. You're overthinking this.
Apparently,
as
so.
a kid, I saw it in the Southern Theater I've talked about here, Columbus. It's got great effects. Nick Adams is the American actor in this, and kind of in the same way that Raymond Burr was in Gojira.
Mhm.
You have to have a white actor on the screen, or people get it to play in America. Special effects are really good. His hand gets cut off, and it's his hand that crawls across the ground. Beautiful, terrifying as a kid to watch that. You think like, how did they do that kind of stuff? But it is, I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of Godzilla movies, and a lot of them are kind of unwatchable for me. I think this is better than a lot. The Mechagodzilla, I think Mechagodzilla is just like one of the best. I'd watch Frankenstein Conquers the World over Mechagodzilla any day.
I like the 90s ones that didn't do well in America that have a lot of that stuff in them.
Like Final Wars and
Good stuff.
Check it out.
Maybe not. Maybe watch this one instead. Number 1. No. This was one of the first movies I ever streamed on any streaming service, and it was on Netflix, and it is 2010's Rubber.
Really?
It's very Roger Corman-like, so it's just over the top and absurd, but it's about a tire that somehow becomes self-aware. And oh, by the way, it's got psychic powers too. And it sort of becomes obsessed with this woman. And at least he just starts to kill people. I think the tire's name it's been a minute since I've seen it, but I think it has a name.
Goodyear?
No, it's like Steve or something like that. I think I may be wrong on that, but it's just over the top, but it's actually well made. It works. It's a solid 6 out of 10 film, even when you take out the fact that it's about a tire. But because it opens itself up to all these awesome different things, and it's well worth the watch if you've never seen it.
I saw 10 minutes of it. And not because I've heard it's like, oh, this is one of these movies you've got to see. You've got to see. For whatever reason, I got 10 minutes and I never went back. And I think sometimes the things get crowded out. There's so many movies that are out there. So I watched 10 minutes of this, and then maybe 3 weeks later, something better or bigger just took over. So that's your number one.
Mm-hmm.
So of all the 7 movies,
it's the most well made in terms of technically.
And how many times have you seen it?
3.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Yeah.
Periodically. It's just something that I forget about, but when I do says, oh, that's a good one. And a lot of the movies on this list are short.
Is that a good one for a marathon too?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
All of these would be good for a marathon, except for Troll 2. Maybe it's just not quite to the task.
Yeah. Well, good. My number 1 is Jason X.
I knew that was going to be on your list. It was in my honorable mentions.
I know. I figured that it is. There are people that just despise it. It's actually 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. I like it because it's refreshing. For those of you that don't know, it takes Jason, into the year 2455 and in space.
Just like that one song. In the year 2455, when Jason is still alive.
The beauty of this came out in 2001. And I don't think that kind of just seems, because it connects with 2001 Space Odyssey, it kind of works in the same way that Leprechauns in the Hood does, is it takes something that was tired and it's like a fish out of water. In this case, it's taking the fish and putting it in space.
Or Leprechaun in space.
Exactly. Well, didn't they do that?
Yeah,
I think they
it's
did.
over,
So,
yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, this was. I think the outfit that was just completely badass, and the obviously just doing it on a spaceship where it's more confined. Some of the kills on this, David Cronenberg does a cameo on this.
I do
in
like
the
the kill with
beginning.
the nitrous where she
Yeah,
breaks her
the
face.
phrase and then the whole thing with the sleeping bag where they're playing videos. It just is. It's delightful, and I'm kind of surprised that it's not one of the more beloved Jason films in the series.
It's just because it's not a good movie. But it's so bad it's good. It's because it's a bad movie. So now from where we stand, it's good. But if you watched that in 2001, you'd been mad.
I did watch it in
Yeah,
2001.
you didn't like it.
I did like
No,
it.
you didn't.
I did like
No,
it.
you didn't.
Were you there?
I'm pretty sure I was. I remember seeing it in the theaters, and I remember I didn't like it.
Yeah. I like it now.
Yeah, I do too.
I like it now. Well, what do you think out there?
He looks like the Super Shredder from Ninja Turtles: Secret of the Ooze.
It does. You're exactly right.
Just thought about that.
See, that alone is worth what you paid to watch this, to purchase this episode.
Your money back guarantee.
Yes, it is. Well, as always, what are your ideas? Turn us on to something we've never seen before. Check out Manitou, check out Long Hair of Death, check out Rubber. It's all
Poultrygeist.
yes. So it's all good.
Mhm.
As I said earlier, a new episode every week. Really, because of this guy right here. Because I am a bad dad, but I am a good dad. These are bad movies, hence they're good. We're going to see you at the theater. Like us, subscribe, all that kind of stuff.
Kill